everyone, to this week's episode of The Unknown Film Enthusiast, where we will be talking about the Boots Riley directed movie, Sorry to Bother You. I am Nick.
I am Zach.
I'm Dan.
Alright, so this is a movie that I was waiting for a long time because it was announced, I think, a few years ago after Boots Riley wrote a book and an album, both Sorry to Bother You.
Oh, okay.
And then it premiered at Sundance to rave reviews.
Right.
And if we just want to go over some of those reviews, currently at this moment of recording on Rotten Tomatoes, it is at a 95% critic score and a 64% audience score.
Oh my God.
It has a 7.4 on IMDb, an 80% on Metacritic, and a 3.5 out of 4 stars on the Roger Ebert website.
Oh, wow.
So I think a good way to start, before we even go into exactly our thoughts, did either of you watch trailers for this or anything?
I saw,
did.
like one trailer earlier on.
Okay. And what did you think about the general thing? Because I've heard a bunch of people say that they felt their expectations were completely subverted.
They were, and I honestly thought it was going to be like a comedy, essentially, like that, like a telemarketing, like, comedy, and with maybe even, like, some Wolf of Wall Street, like, vibes to it in some one way or another. I was like, okay, but then it took a U-turn, like, probably an hour and 20 in the film. I was like, whoa!
Yeah, I was kind of
Unchained.
Where it was like, I knew coming in would be, like, very interesting, like, visually, because you just see, like, when the telemarketing aspect, when he drops into people's lives, like, that's great. And I thought it was going to be more, like, focused around just that aspect of the comedy behind, like, the awkwardness of being on a telephone marketer and dealing with, like, I also knew it was gonna be like a race relations, like, worker kind of, workers unite kind of thing as well. I got that, but once you got into the worry free whole premise, I did not see any of that stuff. Maybe I just missed it or it never connected. I never saw that in the previews at all, and everything beyond the worry-free aspect out of freaking nowhere.
Well, I think in the trailers you see, like, Armie Hammer doing, like, a celebratory dance, and that's the only scene you see of worry-free whatsoever. They don't really make mention of it. I really like the trailers, and that was one of the things that got me into it, was exactly what you were saying, was, like, the visual styling.
Yes,
and I really liked... But before we go into, like, actual thoughts, I thought it was visually very, very different, very interesting.
But was it what you expected in regards to the trailers?
The thing is, I knew that there was going to be something else because they showed the telemarketing immediately, and I had heard it was this year's Get Out, which is another, like, promotional thing that I've seen them doing, which we'll go into. I don't actually agree with that very much,
no.
but
I think it tried.
Yeah, I think I was going in expecting something, but expecting to be surprised, and I sure as hell was surprised. So yeah, now that we've gotten that out of the way, just some general thoughts, and then I think we should immediately go into spoilers. And unless we accidentally say the elephant in the room. So Dan, your initial thoughts?
I just lost it for a sec. I was zoning out. It was. I enjoyed it. Yeah, we could stop here for a sec.
Well,
just.
Oh, we keep going.
Yeah, we could just
keep going.
I'll just keep going.
Just
like,
cut that part.
Yeah, leave it in post.
So, I thought in terms of, like, I liked this. This film had, like, I would say maybe 3 different, like, aspects or parts to it. I initially had a very Black Mirror kind of vibe to it in the beginning, and then it took a hard turn into, like, this surreal kind of.
Maybe it's even more Black Mirror.
Yes. Yeah, you're right. It is, like, but it gets surreal and in your face about it. Okay. That's maybe the difference that I have about, but yeah, very Black Mirror-esque, which I enjoyed.
What do you mean by Black Mirror-esque? Because I don't understand.
Like, just it going on this crazy premise of what would happen if you created this whole worry-free society and then labor, but then the hard right turn is when they introduce, like, that gets a little further into it. Yeah.
Okay. I am a huge fan of the movie Brazil. And I think this movie follows structurally a very similar path to Brazil, and I really, really liked it. Like, it misses a lot of marks, and I think it goes over when it should have gone under, but I am more happy to see someone swing for the fences and miss completely than to just have, like, a paint-by-numbers movie.
Okay.
Before anything else, I really liked it. I saw it in a theater. There was 2 people who walked out before it finished, and of all of my group of friends, I think that was the only one who actually liked it. Everyone else was just like, that exists, or I'm already over it, kind of thing.
Yep.
So yeah, I think it's very hard to talk about it anymore without going into spoilers. So I think we'll do that.
Yeah, like I definitely like this film too, and I feel like it did not hold back.
Yeah.
Once it reached a certain point in the film, like it didn't hold back, and like it wasn't afraid to like really step out of
Certainly not.
bounds in some ways or another. But it was good, I think, overall.
Okay.
All right, so I want to transition now full on spoilers.
Full on spoilers from here on out.
Very good.
So, horse people.
Horse people. Yeah. Well, we can ease our way into that.
Okay.
But yeah,
they didn't.
They didn't.
Okay.
Can you help me out, bro? It hurts.
But I liked in the beginning. I knew that we were getting something different because all the telemarketing stuff happened within the first 10 minutes of the movie.
Yep.
And as soon as like they started playing the commercials, I was like, okay, this is more dystopian than I thought.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get into basically, obviously, it's you agree to be a slave kind of thing.
Yes.
And you get food in a bed.
Exactly. And like I thought those infomercials were very funny. It was like RoboCop where there's like the fake advertisements in the background.
Yep.
One of our qualified surgeons. Here at the Family Heart Center, we feature the complete Jarvik line. Series 7 Sports Heart by Jensen. Yamaha. You picked the heart.
Yep.
And it was very smart in that sense. I feel like it very much tested the patience of many of its audience members when a literal man-horse hybrid falls out of a bathroom stall halfway through the movie. But I feel like they set up enough around that where even though visually it is extremely jarring, I didn't dislike it. And we will probably disagree on this.
It didn't completely break me from the film. Yeah. I was like, "Oh, this is what we're doing." Okay.
And even like to kind of set that up, I feel like even the white voice, like that's a little bit of a stretch, and it feels weird at first. But like the more you go along with it, like the more it fits in the film.
Yeah. And I feel like if it had been like people doing an impersonation, like if Lakeith Stanfield actually did like, I'm talking like this is my white voice, it was so much better that they got David Cross to come in and do the voice for him, and Patton Oswalt to do Mr. Which that was another thing. We'll go. I guess we'll
I
go into
didn't
more
get
details
that.
of that. He went in and literally they took away his only bit of identity. He lost his blackness. He lost his personality, which is why when is his name Steve, the main character?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
No,
no.
Cash.
Oh yeah,
Cassius Green.
Cassius Green.
Oh, Steve Lift is the owner of the thing.
Yep.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Wait, that's the guy, the eye patch guy. Who's that?
No, eye patch guy is Mr. Blank.
Oh, okay.
Army Hammer is
Steve Lift.
Lift, and that's completely forgot what I was saying.
Why did they bleep?
They bleeped out his name because they took out his personality, and the entire thing.
That's what that was.
Yeah.
Okay.
Boots Riley is a self-proclaimed communist.
Okay.
And that's why everyone's names are a bit like on the nose to Mr. Blank. Cash is green, meaning like you're only worth like the money that you bring in, and that's the only reason he gets brought in further. And then in addition to taking away the individuality, he gets brought to a party, and he's the only black guy, and he is made the center of attention. And just as a commentary on
that's where I felt this movie like hit really strong on, is like some of like these stereotypes that are like super wrong. They're like rap, and then like he doesn't know what to say, so he gets up there and starts rapping.
And I feel like that was a good.
And it was really good because everyone just blindly was like they went along with it. They thought he was rapping, and even him himself, he's like, I'm not a rapper. Like I'm not good at this. Like
you're the new toy of the week, basically.
Yeah.
And then I feel like that sets it up a little bit, and then I feel like they could have easily just gone into how the people who were prisoners are now being forced into it, or are now being forced to work, or maybe just normal growth hormones, or if it was just
but
steroids.
Nick, they're not being forced into it. They're just asked to do a line of blow, and then they find out later on.
And that's another thing that I've noticed, which was there was a couple subtle hints through there. So there's a picture of Armie Hammer riding a horse. When they show up at his party after he does the coke, he has like one of the whips that you use in a horse racing thing.
Yep.
And when Cassius is being hired at the telemarketing place, his boss goes, "Just remember, we're telemarketing. We're not remapping the human genome or anything." And which literally leads into what it is. And it is all a huge, very on the nose analogy for being a workhorse, getting your humanity stripped away from you, and basically instituting a second level of slavery. But I felt the way that it handled the social reaction to that was much better than it could have been. Because if Steve Lift was exposed and he was like, "Yeah, I'm the bad guy, I'm doing this for me," but his whole thing was like, "I showed you the video, I'm not crazy, right? Like, this works." And in reality, it kind of works. Like, it makes sense, everything that he's saying.
They signed on the dotted line.
Yeah, they signed on the dotted line. When it was made public, the stock skyrocketed. And that was it was a very good explanation of why we need unions, and the best thing to do is act. Because Stephen Yeun's character, Glenn from The Walking Dead, was basically like, people, if you tell them that there's a problem but they don't know a solution, it just becomes normalized. And that's why you need to represent yourself and go out and prove a point. And then eventually that does happen towards the end of the film. When Cassius is unfortunately turned into a horseman. But yeah, I felt that
after he did that, side note, after he did that blow, I was waiting for that time, and I was like, he's gonna turn into a horse. Like, I felt it.
And that was another thing that I saw and thought of. This is a little bit far-fetched, but he's breathing weird. His nostrils are flared. He does obviously the gag with like, "Is it any bigger?" talking about his head, which was great. And then he starts tripping over his own feet, which is the thing that baby horses do constantly.
Oh, I didn't even pick up on that. That's
and
great.
Then, obviously, like, he hits his nose on the door, and there's all things like that. And he returns to his garage for a stable life. A stable. Horses live in a stable. There's a lot of very subtle stuff in there. The issue is a lot of the subtlety is completely overshadowed by the very on-the-nose, like, there's no thinking too hard into it, because they're showing you how to think. And I feel like that's part of where this movie fails, is a lack of focus. And if they had just done slavery, or just done white voice, it would have felt like a very complete movie. But I preferred them going all out and parts of it not working, because that just exemplified the strengths of other parts of it to me.
And I think maybe that's one of like the key things that I had about it too, was like, and you mentioned this earlier that I did not hear, but it makes sense, is that the whole this year's Get Out kind of thing. Like, it's definitely entirely trying to be a social commentary, but because it's trying to be a social commentary on so many different things at the same time, it's not as an impactful of a social commentary movie as maybe Get Out was. So what they do is very powerful, but it cuts down on like a lot of its message or what it's getting across to people, because of how surreal and out of the box it eventually gets. Like, before it hit that point of horse people, I was thinking like, all right, what is this guy?
Where's this going?
The Glenn from Walking Dead, I forgot his name wasn't there, but like, what was he like? How is he gonna get out
Squeeze.
of this? Squeeze. That's right. How is he gonna convince Cassius Green to come down and like reunite the workers' party here? Like, I was going full in like, all right, here we go, Marx baby, like, we're gonna do it. And then they're gonna go in and somehow figure out like this workers' free thing, they're gonna infiltrate that. And instead of doing that and focusing on the race relations and this whole idea of like this prison system, this legal prison system, it goes, all right, here we go, genetic modification. And like Jurassic World. No, but like,
now why does this one not work when you're okay with that?
True, I guess that's true. But like,
I do agree with what you're saying.
Big hit.
What the thing that I don't get is how people can immediately wrap their heads around the brain transfusions in Get Out, but can't accept horse people. Whereas I do agree this one is done with a lot more satire, which I feel like should make it easier, because Get Out was very it was comedy in some parts, but it was also very self-serious.
Mm-hmm.
And this movie dealt with things in a very satirical light, where I think it almost is more acceptable for the horse thing to show up than for the twist and Get Out.
And that's because, like, when something isn't completely original, like, I mean, the whole brain thing, I mean, I think of, like, Frankenstein or something like that. When something's not, like, completely original, it's easier to do, essentially. So
It's all been done before.
Yeah,
Okay.
and by having, like, the horse people in this film, I feel like it kind of just adds to its originality. So that's why I may not have visually liked that, but I liked that in the film. It was uncomfortable for me, but nice job.
It adds to the originality, but again, being that original, it detracts from its message. And let me kind of go out on. I need to explain myself here, because with Get Out, if you think about it, like, let me reverse a little bit actually. Why is it difficult for people to accept being turned into a horse? Okay, first thing first. Let's start there.
Questions I never thought would be asked of me.
But like, humans themselves, we like to be equated to anything else that's human or higher intelligence. We love that because we're like this egomaniacal thing where we're smarter and better than everything else. Anything that dumbs us down or makes us lesser than human is immediately hated, and or you do it to your enemies to make them be lesser than the greater power, right? That's what you do to your enemies, is you dehumanize them. All right, so that's the whole point why we can't get that around.
Lobster.
Oh man. So going into the next point then, where this is different from Get Out as opposed to this film, the horse aspect of it is way more on the nose, whereas in Get Out, these African Americans are being brought into a white community, shown off as if they're this prize thing, and then they're choosing, okay, who's going to get this transplant? They are viewed as lesser until they have that white mind in them. It's still going into a human body. They're still being shown off, and look at how this peak performance as if they are a show horse kind of thing. The only trade-off is that you go into their brain. Whereas this is, you are becoming less than human because you're being transformed into something that is, what do they call them? Equestrian or whatever?
Equisapiens.
Equisapiens. Like, that is something that is not human completely. It's obviously, like, more physically able than a human, but it is still other, it is still lesser, because humans are peak physical, mental, everything in our world. So that's why I like Get Out more, is because they got away with that subtle hint of, here's the show horse, we're going to put your brain in it, whereas this is very much, we're going to make our lowly, our proletariats into horses. It's just a little bit more on the nose. Great message, done on the nose versus very simple, more subtle.
I get that. I don't know. I just, when I look at Get Out, I almost see it as like, oh, it's almost too simple, to the point where, like, I felt like they were just telling me the message near the end. Whereas I like the subtlety of Get Out until the end parts, and there's a couple scenes I think in the middle that can be cut out. But this isn't a review of Get Out. Get Out's still great, but I see this as just slightly stronger because it goes all out, and it doesn't try to hold your hand from parts of it. It just almost just asks you to accept the satire, which is, I think, why I enjoyed it so much, and why I enjoy things like Brazil and The Lobster and
I need to see
all
The
these
Lobster.
strange
You
things.
guys see The Lobster.
Yeah.
But I wonder, maybe this is just me as a film goer kind of thing. It's like, when I do think of something critically, when I'm not turning my brain off to watch a screen, like, it is more enticing to think about these things. But with a film like this, is, again, that suspension of disbelief. It comes in, and it comes in hard, and it will either you either accept it or you're gonna walk out of the film.
And that's the thing, though. Like, that's the thing that'll make or break a film for each person as the individual, I think. And that's why maybe some of us, all of us could walk away from that and be like, damn, like, that hit strong in one way or another. But then again, like you said, other people are just walking out of these films. So,
and it also explains why, kind of circling back in the beginning, like, why critics are giving this a 95%. Yeah. There's a reason that they, as movie people that want to see these boundaries tested, are 95%ing this movie, whereas the average movie, it was like 60 something. Like, I would personally give this like 7.5 range, maybe 8, but that's where I am at this film, where I can like it, I can appreciate it, but it just, I'm probably not gonna watch this movie again, kind of thing. But I understand it is important. So But these people, the critics, the 95%, that's saying a lot about how much they like this film and how they think it's going to impact. Like, I forgot what the tagline was for the review, but it's like, this new director is going to really, because this is also his first film, right?
Which is amazing.
Yes.
Like, granted, he wrote an album based on thoughts that he'd had, and he was a telemarketer at some point, which is where the beginning parts came from.
That's cool.
And then he wrote a book called Sorry to Bother You, which I haven't read, but from what I've heard is also just oddly satirical. And one of the things I thought was funny is something I saw in an interview with him was when he wrote the book, one of the lines from what's the corporation called again? Sorry, the
Worry Free.
Worry Free was "We're gonna make America great again," and they had to change it because it was too on the nose now. And I think stuff like that's funny where they have to retroactively change it. But it's a very, this is an issue I think that a lot of first-time directors have, is they have these ideas, and in case the movie doesn't work, they put every idea in the movie, so that way if they never make a movie again, at least they got these things out of their head.
Yep.
And while I think it works in this movie and doesn't work in many other movies, I can appreciate it for that sense, but I can also understand why that doesn't gel with everyone.
Yeah.
And it makes sense as to why this isn't the phenomenon that Get Out was. Granted, it's only been in wide release for a week at this point, even less.
Side note, I don't know why. I just was remembering, like, I liked his girlfriend in the film. Her earrings, like, changed a lot.
Yeah.
There was definitely some hidden meanings in a few of them. Like,
some of them also just said fuck kill.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's some of them had like very hidden meanings. Some of them were very subtle. And
but even that, I would say, is like almost like the mindlessness of like being animalistic in a sense, like being part. I mean, obviously horses aren't like predators, like you know, dinosaurs from Jurassic Park. See our Jurassic Park review, but you know, like the golden, like she had a golden guy on a throne or something.
Yeah, shackled to the throne.
Yeah. And it was just like gold being like poured on his head or whatever, and that's like the whole. I don't know. I thought it was at least like chasing paper, like being greedy, like that type of stuff.
And hearing that he's the self-proclaimed communist or whatever.
He's very like, it is not subtle in those senses. I find it interesting. Like, that's because I don't have the exact mindset where I believe government and, you know, capitalism and stuff. I went and paid for a movie ticket, so clearly it's working. But yeah, it's interesting to me because I like that these artsy movies are being made because you see the inner workings of someone's mind, whether it works or whether it doesn't work. And that's I'm just happy that this is getting a wide release. Because I remember seeing The Lobster. It was in the theaters for 2 days near us, and I left work early to go see it. And this movie, I'm happy I could at least go with a group of friends. The theater wasn't empty, and there were other people who left. Whether or not they liked it or not, every single person is going to remember that they saw this movie. And I feel like
those horses really stuck out to me, and they shook me pretty hard. And at first, I was really uncomfortable, but then when the joke was made, when he's letting him like out of like the truck or whatever, and he's like starts to communicate with him. He's like, "Hello, thank you," or whatever he said, and then the horse just goes like, "I'm from South Oakland," or
talk regular.
What did he say?
He's like, "I'm from East Oakland.
East
you can
Oakland.
talk regular."
You can talk regular.
And that's and
it gave me a good chuckle.
Yeah. It brought it back to reality for a guy while looking at a man on a horse. But yeah, I think it's an interesting movie, and I hope that this becomes like, I can't see it becoming like a classic or winning any Oscars or anything, but if it becomes like a cult classic, or if it's shown like Rocky Horror or Brazil or Big Lebowski or something, because there is something that is being said in the movie, and that's I think the biggest detriment that could happen is if this just goes unnoticed. And I'm hoping that because of the positive reviews, at least some people go out and see it.
And with those positive reviews, this, you know, the director, if as long as he can keep that momentum of being loved by critics, someone will pick him up to direct something or create something else. So,
or if not, he'll just keep making music.
Yeah, so he'll have his creative outlet.
Plan.
Yeah, he'll have his creative outlet, and it'll be fine.
Yeah.
All right, so good for you. What is the guy's name
Boots
again?
Riley.
Boots Riley.
Wish my name was Boots. Thanks, Mom. But yeah, it's just it was interesting just to see the interconnectivity in these movies, and when we're just on the topic of connecting things.
Interesting.
One of the things I noticed in this movie was that Danny Glover was in it. I haven't seen him in a movie in a long time, but one of the movies I watched recently with him was Lethal Weapon, and his partner Murdoch is played by Mel Gibson.
Oh, interesting.
Mel Gibson was in a movie in 2002 called Signs. Signs, sealed, delivered. It's Signs.
Thank God. Well,
so that hopefully the review was short enough, and if not, we're sorry to bother you.
Go see the
this
movie.
Tell us what you think.
Oh yeah!